Ladies and gentlemen, Augusta is blessing the world of Withering Waves. We are going to be summoning for her, or we might have already summoned, depending on when this video drops. And we're getting her S6, R5, because she's waifu. But with that being said, there's a lot of people wondering, will Augusta save Electro? Because us that know, and for those of you that don't know, it seems like the devs hate Electro characters. I don't know what it is, but they've been cucking Electro since the dawn of time, bro. First off, they gave us some weird Calcharo kit that was different from what it used to be way back in the day. He was very, very awkward to play. Then Yin Lian came out, and now she's fallen off. Biggest fall off in Wuwa history. And then they gave us the only other Electro character to have dropped since the game released. Yao, and they gave him to us for free. So now we're at the point where all the Electro characters are kind of doo-doo. They're doing their thing. Yao does his thing, you know what I'm saying? Calcharo, I guess, can help new players. Yin Lin is hot as hell. So they do their thing, but in reality, it's probably the weakest element in the game. So can Augusta finally bring Electro to its true and deserved glory? Let's go ahead and see what this YouTuber has to say.
With Augusta's release being soon, I had a thought. Electro currently really is not that powerful of an element.
Yeah.
And honestly, it hasn't been in quite a long time.
It's never been one of the powerful elements. We've been getting hoed since the dawn of time, bro. I was a Calcharo main, bro. Come on now.
For most of the game's lifespan, Electro hasn't really had a big heavy hitter character, but I suspect that Augusta will change that. So let's talk about the history of Electro during the lifespan of Wuthering Waves.
Okay.
Starting with the game's release and the 1.0 Electrocast. And I'm gonna be completely honest here, the 1.0 Electrocast had a very big leg up over the other elements because it had two 5-star characters, something no other element was able to say. However, even with this golden opportunity, it somehow managed to squander it.
We started somewhat strong when Calcharo got Yin Lian, right? And then it was feeling pretty damn good. And then they fumbled it, bro.
Our 3 Electro characters on release were Calcharo, Yinlin, and Yuanwu. Yinlin did take 2 extra weeks to come out, but I'll still talk about her for the sake of discussion. Okay. But first, let's talk about Calcharo. Calcharo was a character that a lot of people, including me, thought was very good at the launch of Wuthering Waves.
Hey, he was!
Simply because we had not
tasted
real power yet. A lot of people glazed Calcharo because he was so awesome and so cool, so a lot of people simply re-rolled to get him from the beginner banner.
Hell yeah, coolest character in Wuthering Wave on launch, bro. Shit, I'm gonna play these games for the waifus and the cool looking characters, bro.
And even if they didn't re-roll, they chose to get him from the free selector or the choice beginner banner. So a very large amount of accounts ended up actually having Calcharo on them. It also doesn't help that during beta, Calcharo was an incredibly powerful character because swap cancels did not get rid of Ultra Skill effects at the time, meaning that the Calcharo Yinlin quick swap duo was one of the most dominant teams during beta. Calcharo was also nerfed between beta and the game's release, so a lot of the things that people had seen from Calcharo during the game's beta simply ended up being incorrect compared to the in-game version of Calcharo.
Bro, they did Calcharo so dirty, it was actually sad. They changed the way he synergized with a character like Yin Lin, right? Like they just said. And they also made Calcharo arguably weaker. And I'm pretty sure they did that so people would want to pull Gion, right? Like, we can't have Calcharo be too strong. They got to pull Gion, bro. It was just depressing.
So while people believed Calcharo was a powerful character, in reality, he ended up having a lot of quality of life issues and clunk to him. It doesn't help that liberation damage dealers at release were stuck with Gen Shin, who, as we now all know, is not that good of a character. So the second that we got into the actual hard stages of Endgame, and the second people started building up their GNs and their Havoc Rovers and their Encores, people kinda started to realize that Calcharo wasn't really that good of a character.
Hey man, listen, I don't know, because I still like, you know, Calcharo's playstyle, but all I gotta say is this. my Calcharo carried me through all of 1.0, clearing every hologram, 30 stars on tower. He carried me through all of Mount Firmament. He cleared the hologram there as well, and he was still clearing all content with max stars, max rewards. And I don't think I had him duped up like that. I don't think I had his weapon duped up. I don't think my Yin Lin was duped up. So while maybe he wasn't the very best, he was still doing work, bro. Calcharo was still doing work.
Yuan Wu was always seen as a bad character, though.
Yeah, he
Nothing really
trash.
changed there. He just has an utterly useless kit that you're kinda just not using for anything. And then we got the release of Yinlin. Now, Yinlin is a character who was glazed a ton when she came out, which, in my opinion, was not for good reason. Sure, on her release, she was an incredibly powerful
Did you guys see that jiggle right there?
was not for good reason. Sure, on her release,
That alone right there is more than enough of a reason to glaze all over Yin Lin, like all over her, bro. So I don't even understand where. I'm just saying, bro. There were very valid reasons to glaze Yin Lin.
she was an incredibly powerful character because she just did so much damage at the time. Remember that at the time, GN was the absolute peak of damage output, and people very much still believed Calcharo was a good character, and a lot of characters simply didn't have very good buffers, which meant that Yinlin's kit, which just kinda did a lot of damage, ended up being a very good fit for all of the DPSs who did not yet have a good support.
Yeah.
If you were playing someone like Chixia, for example, your best buffer was Taucha, who we all know is not very good as a unit. Even during 1.0, we all acknowledged that Taucha was not good, so you'd rather have the personal damage of a Yinlin in that composition. Yinlin also ended up being played a lot with Calcharo. Her Ultra skill was perfect for
Yeah.
Calcharo, but because of Calcharo's inherent clunk, most people ended up just running the two as a quick swap duo. Yinlin's role as simply being a damage-based sub-DPS who didn't really have much utility to her name for most DPS characters meant that in that role she would always have a short lifespan. She was the best liberation buffer because the competition was Jianshin, but the only real liberation DPS we had was Calcharo, and even he couldn't properly use the Ultra skill because, as I said earlier, most people ended up just playing the two as a quick swap duo, because
Yeah.
Calcharo as a hypercarry is about as consistent as Brant trying to land his anchor. Yinlin did end up getting a
I will have no brand slander going on here. You watching me? You ain't about to diss my brand like that, bro. My brand has 20/20 vision. He does not be missing his goddamn anchor, bro. What are we talking about, bro?
pretty good teammate in the
That's
form of
crazy.
Jinshi, because Jinshi was the best DPS when she came out. And Jinshi also wanted coordinated attacks,
That's crazy
which
behavior.
Yinlin was the best source of due to her high personal damage. However, this role would not last long, because Jeju would come out one patch later, who actually had a better Ultra skill to use with Jinshi, meaning that while Yinlin was still a good character to run with Jinshi, she was no longer the best in slot.
Yeah, that's
She
true.
also ended up being used in hypercarry Chongli teams quite a bunch, but even then, Chongli hypercarry was not really that powerful of a team, and Chongli ended up finding her use case more so within the quickswap domain rather than being played as a hypercarry.
Yeah.
So ultimately, Yinlin's teams were incredibly limited, and the ones she did have were very much prone to just getting stolen from her. But all of this changed when Sheng Liao came out. Sheng Liao is a character that everyone who was playing at the time managed to get, or
Yeah.
at least almost everyone, because he was literally given for free from an event. And a lot of people really honed in on the fact that this character was free. Sheng Liao is an amazing free DPS. Sheng Liao is so good despite being free. So many people focused on Sheng Liao being free without critically looking at her performance, because most people ran one of two teams, either the hypercarry team with Yinlin or the quickswap team with Chongli. But
Yeah.
something noticeable in both of these teams is that Yinlin and Chongli are both characters that have very high personal damage. meaning that Shang Liao was kind of being carried on the coattails of two characters who did a lot more damage output compared to the regular support character.
Bro, we've watched we've watched like 4 videos today, and in every video Yao has caught a stray, bro. Like in every video they've shit talked Yao for like no reason, bro. Listen, this man was clearing content, bro. He was pretty good for when they first dropped him. Whether you were running him as a quick swap or with Yin Lin, bro, people were clearing absolutely all kinds of end game with this dude. So like, poor Yao, bro. Homie just been catching strays left and right from every CC today, it seems like.
Which is a pretty long way to say that Shang Liao's personal damage was not all that. When comparing his personal damage per rotation, he was already losing to other limited characters, those being Jian and Jinshi. Both of them have higher personal damage, and Shang Liao was behind by a pretty large margin. However, like I said, he had the very nice advantage of running characters who had very high personal damage of their own, meaning that Shang Liao's damage output was split a lot more throughout the rotation instead of just being all hard focused on his own field time, which brought its own benefits. But the inherent limitation of having lower personal damage, even when you run him with his best in slot support, meant that Shang Liao had very little room to grow.
Yeah, exactly, bro. He has a lot of great things when it comes to his kit, bro. I mean, yeah, sure, we got him for free, and a lot of people ran with it because he was free. It was cheap, right? You can just get his weapon, have a premium character in his weapon. But we weren't blinded by the fact we got a free character. Like, I don't know where that premise is. Zhang Liao was him when he dropped. When we got him for free, bro, he was carrying accounts. He was strong, bro. He was easily, replacing Calcharo and then clearing Weewa, or I don't know if Weewa was around back there. I don't think so. But when Weewa came out, Zhang Liao was doing work in Weewa. Zhang Liao was clearing tower no problem whatsoever with his team comps, whether it was Shang Li or Yin Lin, right? So yeah, he's still clearing content to this day. Once again, yeah, he definitely fell off in terms of like peak damage comparisons. He ain't at the peak anymore, but he's still clearing content. So I don't know, but I will say everything in regards to the Electro team, they've all been subpar, right? Hopefully that trend ends with Augusta. I'm at the point where shit, give us an overpowered character with Augusta because they've been treating Electro so bad, but I don't think at least Zhang Liao was that bad. I think to this day he still has more value, even though one of the videos we saw didn't think so. I think he has more value than a character like Calcharo or Yin Lin, the only other characters in the Electro category.
Because his damage floor was simply lower than that of other characters. The only way to buff Shang Liao more would be to give him a 5-star sub-DPS character who had both a perfect outro skill as well as more inherent buffing within their own kit, something like Rochia's attack buff. But, as we all know at this point, this has not happened, and I still don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. At best, it'll be in a year. So honestly, Shang Liao's low damage floor kind of doomed him to become more irrelevant over time, because there really wasn't many ways that you could make sure his performance kept up with the other top dogs. Sure, he got Nightmare Thundering Mephis, and Yinlin got Empyrean Anthem, and these were both very nice buffs that the team very much could appreciate.
Yeah.
But remember that this is the same update where we got Carlotta, as well as new Nightmare Echoes for almost every single character in the game. So while Shang Liao did see a noticeable increase, so did literally everyone else. And that brings us to Augusta. Augusta, as we now all know, is going to be an Electro main DPS character. And considering the fact that she is the FR of Septimont, and basically Septimont's leader, I don't really see a universe in which Augusta ends up being a mediocre character. Wuthering Waves released some new information on Augusta yesterday, and from that information we can see that almost all of her damage counts as heavy attack damage, which means that she already has very good teammate options. Mortefi is one of the best 4-star characters in the entire game.
She plays wonderful with Mortefi, bro. She plays so good with Mortefi. Also, why she looks so thick right here, bro? Damn.
He has a ton of buffs in his kit, a short rotation, and actually also very good personal damage, considering the fact that he is a 4-star. Being a heavy attack DPS also means that Augusta is going to be good with Frolova, giving us a sort of dual carry team.
So pretty much right now, guys, when she drops, you're either going to want to run her with Frolova or with Mortefi. Those are going to be the two main characters that you'd run her with until we get Yuno, which will be her best in slot partner. Sun and Moon combo. Bro, they even have a literal interaction where you literally summon the moon and then you summon the sun and it looks like they're clashing into each other. It's crazy. It's just crazy. But for now, yeah, you're going to run Mortefi. If you already have a build, by all means, rock him. And if you already have Frolova build, by all means, rock her. Save your materials, save your currency for Yuno, for your Augusta. Now, do you need Yuno for your Augusta? Probably not if you have these other two options. But like everything, having the best in slot for your main dedicated DPS is always ideal, whether you're free to play or anywhere in between, right?
The same way we have GN and Frolova working together, or Phoebe and Frolova. So Augusta already seems to have multiple team options, one of which being a 4-star. But as you can see, neither of these characters are perfect for Augusta per se. We don't have a Zhezha to Carlotta situation, or a Yinlin to Xing Liao situation. Although it is possible that Yuno is going to change this, because, well, they are paired up constantly in the story, they're paired up constantly in marketing, they even have the Sun and Moon motif. So I think it's going to be extremely silly if these characters don't work together.
They work so crazy together that I actually said for a while now that I hope they change one of Yuno's mechanics, because it's literally currently only functional for Augusta. Augusta's the only character that can take full advantage of Yuno's biggest value buff. So they definitely got to either change that up, or she's just going to be her dedicated support until other characters that can trigger that buff eventually drop. But yeah, it feels like Yuno was specifically made for Augusta and for Augusta only for now.
The one concern that Augusta really has right now is the possibility of her damage output simply not being that high. But there is no doubt in my mind that this is simply not going to be an issue. Every recent DPS has been incredibly powerful. The Mono Fusion team is really powerful, the Mono Havoc team is incredibly powerful, the Cardathea Erosion team is incredibly powerful, Zani is incredibly powerful, Carlotta is still incredibly powerful, DPS Phoebe as well. I don't think there's been a single bad DPS in 2.0. I would even argue that ever since 2.0, there has not been a single dedicated main DPS character that has any sort of major downside that needs to be addressed. So I really doubt we're going.
I mean, I don't know about that one there. What about Zani needing Spectrofrazzle, but not even applying it in the slightest? I just wanted to throw that out there.
To see a situation like with Xing Liao where his personal damage is simply lower than other DPSs. But that's just my opinion. What do you think of Electro? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Alright, man, listen. Hey, listen. I hope that Augusta saves Electro. Electro has 100% been hoed by the devs. Everything from the very beginning to what we have right now has been a rough patch for Electro. And it's funny because even if Augusta saves Electro and she just stands right next to Cardathea, another one amazing, DPS, her best in slot is an arrow character, and we're probably going to run her with Shorekeeper, so no mono Electro, not even duo Electro. So yeah, man, hey, I can't wait for Augusta S6 R5 summons when she drops, and a lot of testing over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be testing all kinds of builds, all kinds of partners, and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's going to be it for the video. Let me know what you think about this video and all that good stuff in the comment section below. Appreciate you guys for watching, and peace.